So welcome everyone to the first webinar of 2023 actually, and it's our 35th webinar since we started these back in September of 2020. I'm Christina Silva, I'm the manager of the CAQDAS Networking Project, and I'm joined here today by my colleague Dr. Sarah Bullock. Hi Sarah. Sarah will be facilitating the discussion later on in our webinar. Just a little bit of background, the CAQDAS Networking Project is based in the Department of Sociology at the University of Surrey in Guildford in the UK, and you can tap into the wealth of resources and training events that we have on the use of software for qualitative and mixed methods analysis from our website. Our webinar today is in our user stream. And in that stream, we invite researchers who use qualitative software to discuss their work in progress and to reflect on their use of tools for different purposes. And our session today is presented by Dr. Oscar Alvarez-Macotela, who I will introduce to you very shortly. But before I do that, just to let you know that we have a couple more webinars already scheduled for later on this year, and we've got even more in the pipeline. So do keep an eye on our website and our social media channels for information about these and other webinars and events as we schedule them. And of course, if you're interested in contributing to our webinar series, please do get in touch. We'd love to hear from you. We're always interested to hear about what people are doing around the world. So do feel free to get in touch if you need anything from us or if you'd like to contribute to our activities. All of our webinars are recorded, and you'll be sent the link to the recording of this one later on after we've finished. And the link to the previous webinars, the 34 previous webinars we've done, they're all available on our YouTube channel, so you can tap into those also. And if you're interested in information about our training, we do a range of training in the use of particular qualitative software programs. You can also tap into those from our website, and we'll be sharing the links to all of those in our post-webinar email that we'll send out to you. Okay, so enough about all of that. Let's get on to today's session. And I'm really delighted to introduce you to our speaker today, Dr. Oscar Alvarez-Macotela. Oscar is a lawyer specializing in financial development, and he has a special interest in the social impact investment and human ecology. He's also has a keen interest and long experience in methodologies for qualitative research. Oscar has had a varied career, some of the journey of which he's going to share with us today. In terms of his academic career, Oscar has worked as a researcher at several UK universities, including at the University of East Anglia in the School of Biological Sciences, at the University of Kent School of Law, and also at the University of London's Institute of Education. He combines his interests and expertise in many different ways, not least through his work as an active member of the global network of Mexican professionals abroad, through which he combines his interests in international cooperation for development, cross-disciplinary academic initiatives, and science outreach activities. Oscar has been active in the field of CAQDAS, qualitative software, for more than 15 years. And he's participated in many of our events over the years. We've known him for a long time, so we're delighted to have him here today. I could say more, but I know that Oscar is going to share with us today his personal journey with CAQDAS and other digital tools. So I'll pass over to him shortly. Just to say, if you have any questions, comments along the way, please do post those in the Zoom chat space. And Sarah will collate them and facilitate a discussion towards the end of our time together today. All right, Oscar, it's a pleasure, as always, to have you here. We're really excited and interested to hear some of your journey and the benefits you see from CAQDAS and other digital tools, beyond which is usually discussed. So really interesting topic of discussion. Thank you very much for giving up your time to be with us today. Over to you. I'll stop my share.
Thank you very much, Cristina, Sarah, for hosting me today. Happy 2023 for everyone. Greetings from London. Well, thank you also for the introduction. I'm ready to start talking a little bit about why I'm here and the points that I would like to share with you in relation to the title of this event today. So as Christina was saying, I started looking at CAQDAS in general when I was studying for my PhD, and during that time I began interested in using mind maps software, because I was used to work with mind maps manually back in that time, and I was very excited to discover several digital tools during the PhD that helped me for different tasks. So it was during that time of search and learning new tools for engaging in professional academic research that I came across with what was then NVivo 2. I'm talking 2006, and I attended a session to learn about that software, and I was really confused when I attended that session. It was a training event in the university, so I couldn't understand exactly how the software worked, but I was really engaged immediately with the possibilities that I was looking on the screen in the training room. But I was very fortunate that around that time it came a very important conference that took place in Durham University in September 2006, and that included some training on software. In particular, I was using NVivo, or learning to understand how to use it, and so that's the time I started looking at how to use this type of digital tools. And from that I began to use it for my doctoral research, and then to apply it in postdoctoral work, and that's something that became a journey and a change in direction sometimes about my professional career, that was before just a lawyer looking at the stock market regulation. And so the topic of the methodologies behind the working of this type of digital tools was a main point of interest for me at some point during those years, and especially between 2007 and 2017. I became more active about learning and attending different types of training sessions, seminars, and using the software. I have used the software also for different topics and working in multidisciplinary teams. Some of them I will refer later in the presentation, but part of my work has been working with in teams with different fields of knowledge, and my contribution has been the part of the qualitative analysis and management of the data related to some of those projects. I wanted to mention here, to me is very meaningful, perhaps not so clear why for some people who haven't been in following the process of CAQDAS, the development over the past decade. But in 2010, there was a very important conference in the Netherlands, Wallon conference, and I had my ticket to fly to that event. I was really excited because of the topics they were going to discuss. But unfortunately, there was the volcano eruption in Iceland, and my flight was the last one that remained canceled before the airports restarted the flights. So I was really sad because I was missing that very important event before Zoom period. So, but there was one person, Silvana Di Gregorio. Many of you may have met her or read part of her research. And she was organizing in a very effective way manners in which people who were not able to travel to that conference could learn about what was happening. And basically that was managed then by Silvana through Twitter account. So anyway, I mentioned this because all what happened around that event with the volcano in Iceland led to my understanding that I had actually become part of a community of not only a community that share technical information, but a community that is broader interested in sharing and facilitating things to the rest of their colleagues. And well, lately I have been less active in training of this topic, but I keep updated with webinars such as those that the CAQDAS Networking Project organized. So I wanted to mention about this conference that I said before in Durham University. That was a real turning point for me. I didn't know that by attending to that conference in particular, my understanding of the CAQDAS, not only the tool, but what was behind the development of CAQDAS, and also the interaction with people that were using methodologies and tools for very different purposes, but with similar interest in the methodology behind. So it was not clicking, right click and doing things, but thinking before clicking. So that's something very special to me. And I didn't know then that 2 years after that, I was going to be in Uganda providing some training. After I did my PhD, I had the opportunity to work for a medical research council project supported by the ESRC here in the UK. And basically my work there was helping to analyze a very large amount of data for a longitudinal qualitative data project related to oral histories in rural Uganda. And I needed to be there in the field. And as part of that activity, I also helped in the training, in the formal training of the social science team in the field unit, and basically it's people looking at epidemiology. It was a very important moment for me to understand how part of what I had learned before or other topics was very helpful at the level of epidemiology, public health, and social science in another country. How I use the software, essentially the main use of the software is a traditional one from my side. I typically use it normal or regular academic research projects. I also use it for social impact management, mainly for assessment reports, social impact. I use it for the analysis of very different types of legal documents. And also it's very helpful for me when sometimes some clients ask me about my opinion, my professional opinion in relation to certain topics. So when the information required is abundant and complex, CAQDAS is a very helpful tool for that type of tasks as well. And there are what I call here other uses, and I'm going to refer it to that more clearly because it has to do with neurodiversity. I became very interested on the topic back in 2007 when I was officially diagnosed as dyslexic. I didn't know about dyslexia before, other than my understanding that it was something related to having trouble with seeing words and confusing right with left, and a problem related about reading. But actually, my diagnosis helped me to understand that many other odd things that happen in my life in terms of other points that I will show you were happening, and that it was important for me to gain awareness of that and find some strategies, or more sophisticated strategies, especially when I needed to do or engage in very large analysis of documents and working systematically in more structured ways of doing things. So that's part of the reason why I want to point out some of the aspects that I see in CAQDAS and other digital tools that relates to a different use of the software. In a recent webinar here, one of your presenters was showing information about a paper about how graduate students engage in the computer-assisted qualitative data analysis. And I'm highlighting here a part that I felt it was very important for me. This has not to do with dyslexia, but the perception that CAQDAS are complex. And by complex, basically, I understand that it's meant that it's very difficult enough to learn that people avoid using it, because there is the assumption that it will be very difficult to learn all what you need to know in order to achieve some improvement in how you are doing certain things. And also that there is insufficient training sometimes about it. So this is important in the sense of how the access to this type of tools is perhaps blocked by the assumption that is inaccessible. So it's a complex topic, but I wanted to mention that. Now, in terms of the signs of dyslexia at the adults, this is information coming directly from the British Dyslexia Association. There are 16 signs of dyslexia in my case. From these 16, there are 14 that are particularly relevant to me. I'm highlighting what I think is the most problematic issue from all of them in my personal case, which is the challenging in terms of organization, time management, and prioritizing tasks. So these are the 14, from those that you just saw, these are the 14 that are more relevant for my personal case. And in the right column in green, you see some of, I want to comment about each of them in terms of how I see that CAQDAS and sometimes other digital tools are helpful for people with similar challenges in terms of how we process information and how we respond to certain surrounding distractions, for example, or conditions, and the timing in which things needs to happen. In terms of the first one about confusing visually similar words, that's very common. I think there are a series of language features included in CAQDAS packages, such as the dictionary. I'm using the language of the vocabulary of En Vivo software because that's the one I normally use. But I'm sure there is an equivalent or several other of the CAQDAS packages that most of you may be using. So in addition to the internal dictionaries, something very important is helpful for me is the use of the word clouds, especially when there is a lot of information and I don't know exactly what I'm going to find in the document that I'm examining. The word clouds and different forms of presenting that information by the software helps a lot in terms of understanding some of the words and some of the concepts that are important and detecting those in a way that if I were reading in the traditional way, a large document, I probably would never pick it. And sometimes not because I'm not reading, but because even while I'm reading, I may be confusing or skipping without realizing certain parts. So text search queries, for example, and the synonyms that can be generated automatically by the software helps as well in terms of making a better understanding or grasping certain bits of small information at the level of words or expressions. Spelling erratically also is similar to cope with that. The software can help a little bit with part of this type of language features. In terms of number 4, read and write slowly. That's a very common thing. But something I found, especially with the mind mapping tools and CAQDAS software, is that yes, we cannot accelerate much things, but we can keep working, I would say, slowly but surely, using, for example, the fields of description of each of the items in most of the main CAQDAS packages, provide the opportunity to describe or define what is the item about. And then the annotations, for example, and the memos, all that type of elements help to verbalize, push me to verbalize things in a way that helps me to start getting something concrete about what I'm seeing and what I am understanding about certain terminology or certain concept and how I am finding connected with other topics or elements that I'm looking at. Of course, that takes time. It is time consuming to go through that process, but it helps to get traction in starting stating one's thoughts and emerging issues to explore if relevant according to research questions, for example. Number 5, about the need of reread paragraphs to understand them. Yeah, that's very common as well. And I think the elements as tagging a document or a text or sections in a note, for example, or in a memo, in an annotation, helps to the process of information gradually. Once some chunk of information is tagged or identified, marked in the software, it becomes easier to go back to further review of that information if it's relevant. So this is something that has been very helpful over the years for me. Number 7 about number 6, finding hard to listen to and maintaining the focus. Sometimes the capability of listening audio recordings and several times in different moments, and adding notes as well is very helpful. So it's that is the analysis of breaking things down, and understanding of the information that was given to us for colleagues, the principal investigator, or someone else that we are working with, or someone who is giving us certain feedback, or the people who are interviewing the project, etc. In relation to number 8 and number 9, that is about confusion when we get some directions, especially when there are many directions or information going to our attention. And one element that I have found useful is that if we can retain the information in digital form, it helps to go back to it and break it down again in smaller chunks. And that helps to reduce the barrier of mental overload and sometimes anxiety about information that we are not grasping adequately in the immediate point of receiving that information. In terms of number 11, about often forgetting conversations or important events or dates, I find very useful to stick to time management online timers with alarms, and there are some that are included in different digital tools that are common. Some of them are included in our laptops. So I tend to use all that as a way of reminding myself about things that need to happen at certain times, or when something needs to happen. And for that, all these digital tools are very relevant for me. In terms of number 12, about is the most challenging, actually, about personal organization, time management, and prioritizing tasks. There are mind mapping tools that I find helpful, project management spreadsheets and Gantt charts that are helpful, but they are very time consuming. Is not my something that I found particularly easy to implement, but is somehow effective in my case. And avoiding certain types of work is certain tasks I prefer if someone else can do it, but sometimes I need to do it. So with this type of supports from digital tools, particularly CAQDAS packages, I think it's less likely that I refuse to do certain things because I have that type of support. And the last one is about things that some tasks may be very easy for some people, and some of them are not necessarily seeing those tasks as easy. But for example, I have very, very helpful to use the CAQDAS, and I don't have any trouble in spending long hours in certain mechanical tasks that are required. Coding is not a mechanical task, but coding is another task that I can happily spend hours when I need to work on that. And brainstorming and lateral thinking inputs, adding that to my work, and writing ideas in annotations, memos. So all that is something that is very helpful to have the structure and the system of CAQDAS packages. Sorry. Okay. I'm going to show some examples of what I was telling you in terms of that table. But in NVivo and other packages similar, you will find an option for saving your work after certain times. You can keep it that reminder for saving your work or not, but you can also adjust it if you want. And I'm sure that was not meant. It was not designed for neurodiversity people, but it's a good example of something easy that is very helpful for me. I normally adjust that to different times. The default is 15 minutes. Sometimes I use that, and it helped me to keep track on part of the work that I'm doing when I'm concentrating in the other tasks. So these type of reminders, I find them helpful, not so much for the decision of saving the work or the changes, but for keeping track of what is happening. Something else that is I found very helpful is here we are seeing, I use EndNote as my reference manager. And what you are seeing here is a section of my library that is specifically about one particular project that I'm working on that has to do with an action for citizen action for climate change response and circular economy. So the project is not scientific, is not academic, but part of what I'm doing relates to identifying some actions that normal people at home individually can do to support some actions about circular economy and climate change. And I selected these particular references because they are supporting or they are providing some scientific base support of part of that work that I'm doing with some other colleagues. So, but my point of presenting this here is that precisely by organizing all this information, that altogether is a lot of material to read, but by organizing them in a system like a reference manager, helps a lot, not only for the purpose of having the bibliographic reference to cite, but also to comment directly in this reference manager about things that are relevant for the content of each of these, why I selected certain references and how they are relevant for the specific purpose that I'm pursuing in the project. So by having that collected, it's easier to start reducing and having more structure about smaller chunks of the information that I need to deal with. And the advantage also is that I can bring that information, I can import to NVivo in this case. So what you are seeing here is part of a word cloud query, word reference, the frequently words in that series of references that are particularly relevant for me. And specifically, the focus is on the keywords of those references and the abstracts from those references. So here I'm seeing, as I was mentioning, some of the tools that are helpful or features for language elements. I'm seeing immediately certain ways of looking at the word food and what they are in terms of similar words about that, and all that is coded, and it helped me to start understanding much better what is in my material that is specifically relevant for what I'm trying to locate. Exactly what you are seeing here is from the same material I was showing you about those references that came from EndNote. Here, I imported all the information in the. It's very small, this image, but all this part that you are seeing in white is the references, the specific reference. And what you are seeing in highlighted in yellow are the keywords that I selected, and it's a combination of the keywords that were in the reference, in the published articles or books, but also includes specific keywords that I selected because for the project were highly relevant to the work I'm doing. And all this is part of the notes that come generated from these keywords. And I need to do that because I haven't found an easy way to export from EndNote to NVivo in a way that the keywords appear as notes or codes. So I need to work a little bit more in terms of generating a process to achieve the purpose of seeing the keywords as my codes in NVivo. Now, something else that comes from using EndNote and similar packages for references is that I'm using not only for the bibliography. It's mainly I use by my EndNote for professional matters that I need to. And it's very helpful for me to use the fields in addition to the basic bibliography or citation. I found very useful fields to add my comments and my annotations about certain things related or that I found important to record about the specific reference that I am including in my archive of bibliography. So all that information, also when I'm import that from EndNote to CAQDAS packages, that information goes included and is very helpful to have that not only in the reference manager but in my CAQDAS package. And as I mentioned, I include other words that I consider keywords in a section or the additional keywords, and that's also very, very helpful. So at the end of the day, my EndNote libraries have become even more valuable to me, given that extra information that I include and the possibility of integrating that in CAQDAS package. Some examples of minor personal projects that basically I have used for as a way of practice and learning how I can learn part of my digital tools, but also how they could be useful for me beyond the normal port. Because I was doing that for long in the past. Adept Scientific approached me in 2011 to contribute with a short case study on the topic of how I use the bibliographic software EndNote. And my contribution was published. You can find in the slides the link if you want to look later. But this explains a little bit how I find useful for different purposes EndNote and the integration of EndNote with other digital tools, and how I find it of benefit. That's something that was published like 10 years ago. Something that I was practicing by that time as an example of how things would work for me with certain digital tools was looking at information about wines that I was tasting at some point. So I had a library about wine with the specifications of images and information in the label and many things. And I was collecting that. Unfortunately, I don't have anymore the original file because it got lost before using the cloud. So, but this is an example of that particular type of use of the EndNote reference manager for things related to a collection of information about bird songs as well, mail stamps that were part of a collection that I was working on. And so it was a helpful way to see how, in addition to the academic work, this could help to organize things for non-academic purposes. So these are some other examples, that type of work that I was doing and I still find helpful. Something that I use a lot is mind maps. And here you are seeing an example of a mind map that I have in my laptop. And all this is in the cloud as well, where what you are seeing here in blue are branches that correspond to folders in my computer, where I have very different topics that are of my professional interest mainly. And but inside of each of those folders, there is a really large amount of information accumulated from many years now. Some of them relate to conferences I have attended, projects that I have participated, reports that I have obtained, or different documents. That sometimes there are videos, many different type of information that I have collected for different activities over the past years. And I know where they are in my computer. But I started creating this big mind map that I call synapses in order to try to connect in a more systematic way the information about the different broad areas of my interest, professional interest, work, and how they are interrelated for identifying also those elements in which I could use part of the information that was in another topic that I didn't remember it was there, but is one way of identifying and rediscovering and recycling information that is important for me. But we are talking about a really large amount of information here. So I'm using mind maps to process that in my computer. I would like to be able to export all that directly to my NVivo projects, but NVivo cannot accept directly importing the format of my mind mapping tool. So I need to work a little bit step by step to achieve that, and it's a work in progress that I'm very happy to see how this has been evolving. From that very large synapses mind map. This is a section related, for example, to law, which is one of the obvious areas of my interest. And what you are seeing is from one specific branch here that relates to a global alliance of impact lawyers. It's an association of recent creation. I have affiliated myself to that organization. And there are many conferences, there are many documents that are shared for members. Some of that information is public. So what you are seeing here corresponds to documents or meetings, webinars that are public. So all this is connected in this particular branch of my mind map related specifically to that Gale Association of Lawyers. And from each of those, there is a lot of information on each of the mind maps. For example, this is from that branch that you saw. This is a specific link, or it's a mind map about a webinar that was the role of lawyers in the just transition that took place in September last year. And here you can see this is something that I take notes. I build this while I'm in the conference normally. So I try to include information that I find that is useful, but that I may not remember, even if sometimes there is recording, sometimes there is no recording. So I bring all the information that is relevant for me from some documents that are shared publicly. Is included here. And this is one way in which I have, at the end of the conference, the information ready for my own use later. So that's one example. And this is also examples of that same mind map. That includes, the software includes word clouds as well. So that's something that helps me in the mind map. And this is another mind map that I transferred, I imported to NVivo, so I cannot bring the mind map in its original form, but I can export it as a Word document, and then I can analyze or understand that in my NVivo software. And here I'm bringing all together the elements that help me to link the synapses mind map in my laptop. That is one way of not only recycling information, but learning and making use of the tools for that purpose. Other current projects that I'm doing relates also to the law, and I highly recommend if you take a look to, there is an initiative that is known as the Legal Geek, and there is they have created the Legal Geek Startup Map. It's a very interesting series of, it's a very large collection of software or digital tools created with to help lawyers, to practitioners, to solve different types of tasks. And some of them, you will find all of them here, but some of them are closely related to the process of CAQDAS, to the system of how to work for certain purposes of analyzing very large contexts and tagging and finding solutions about queries in terms of very different tasks that mainly a law firm or a lawyer individually will need to do. So they are not using directly the main packages of CAQDAS that we normally use for academia, but I think this is one of the very interesting things to explore if you haven't done it. It's something I really recommend. And these are two examples of part of the work that I'm doing in the Synapses project. And here I'm showing you from two very different laws about, or legal documents about the regulation in Mexico of fintech and the regulation in Mexico of the stock market. And all that is very connected to the work I'm doing with social impact investment and social impact topics. There is quickly I want to mention about a project just to finish. It's an initiative about circular economy and education for citizens. And this is one project in which I'm applying also the use of en vivo mainly because we are interested in helping our stakeholders in terms of understanding much better certain stakeholders that are academics and to understand how, as an organization of Mexican diaspora in the UK, we can help them to network and achieve better what they need to do. And to understand that from our stakeholders, the system of network sociograms is a very important tool that we are planning to use for our stakeholder database. And
Oscar, sorry to interrupt you, Oscar. It's are you okay to have a little look at how many more slides there are, so we have a wee bit of time for questions?
Yes, this is my final.
Oh, super! Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Just final considerations. I was talking about the relevance of recycling information, but also depending on how it is seen, recycling information could turn into undesirable digital hoarding of information that is not necessary. So this is relevant as long as there is a purpose and we are achieving something concrete by collecting and reprocessing part of the information there. So there is need for a balance, find a balance, and the balance mainly is this really helping in a practical way to something I need to do? Otherwise, it's just accumulating unnecessary material and perhaps waste of time. Sometimes the restrictions of the license of our software could be a barrier for engaging in this type of use of the software. But I wanted to mention that clearly there is an absence of CAQDAS packages are normally not found in the suggested list of digital tools that could be helpful for neurodiverse people. So I think there is a very good room. There is room for a conversation about that with organizations that are looking with expertise on neurodiversity people. And finally, that I think this user stream webinar is very helpful in terms of facilitating to the broader CAQDAS network community to devise and to collect, to map this type of little examples of how we can benefit by using our tools for different things that are not necessarily the traditional ones. And thank you for your attention. And I'm more than open to questions and comments in the remaining time.
Thank you so much, Oscar. Thank you so much. And I'm sorry I interrupted you there right at the end. You are absolutely wrapping up. Thank you. Thanks also so much for sharing these personal reflections on how CAQDAS has supported you in ways beyond the usual as you set out. I confess that you've introduced me to a new set of ideas in setting out how CAQDAS can support neurodiverse researchers. I had really not realized it to the extent that you've explained, and I'm really very grateful personally to you that you've shared these experiences and reflections with us. And I also found that slide where you're mapping your personal signs of dyslexia onto specific aspects of CAQDAS really clear and a very powerful way of making your point. So thank you. Also your invitation to consider ways in which you've used tools for non-academic purposes was really compelling. So, I mean, the material about your thinking about wine and your thoughts about that, bird song, and also the mind mapping of what's on your computer. Such a compelling idea. I've often sort of tangentially thought about it, but never really tried it. So thank you so much for sharing it with us. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
No problem at all. We do have a couple of questions. I just wanted to check in the chat. Oh, yes. Okay. So I have just lost my question piece, which has just gone somewhere else. One moment. Christina, if you have it in front of you, are you able to just pose one of those whilst it opens up again for me? Oh, nope, here it is. Hold on a minute. Apologies. No, I've got it back. Thank you. So a question I had personally, so I'm a multilingual researcher, as are you, Oscar. And one of the questions that came to me was, and I really have no experience of this at all, I'm just really interested in your reflections on it, whether there's any interaction between the way you experience neurodiversity and multilingualism. So any challenges that arise out of that, and whether CAQDAS has supported you in relation to this in any way, given its ability to be kind of used in a multilingual way and in a multilingual context.
Yeah, I think it's definitely very, very helpful in terms of the different languages that we can use in the packages. So that definitely has been very, very helpful, and not necessarily related to the neurodiversity aspect, but definitely that type of elements are very helpful, and somehow they are connected, in my experience, with some terms, some terminology is not necessarily, could be like what is known as false cognates, words that in a language mean different things in another language. And that's something in a couple of occasions, I found that thanks to when I'm working in the translation of certain material to analyze further in the CAQDAS packages, that has come as finding words that I thought they meant something different because I was familiar with the word, but then I realized that it wasn't, and it had a very different meaning. So yes, I think there is something about it. Yes.
Excellent, thank you for that. Also, you were talking about the CAQDAS community and how important that was for you, and how the 2010 Kuala Conference really kind of brought that to light. Can you speak a little bit more about how you see the role of the community of CAQDAS researchers around the world? What does the community bring to your work as a researcher, and why is that important?
Yeah, I would like to mention, for example, that again, when I went to that conference in 2006 in Durham University, I arrived with the idea of, well, there is a bunch of group of people that I don't know. They are very experts on the topic, and I'm just here to learn technical things. But suddenly, the dynamics that happened during that type of conference, the people that were sharing information, I found it engaging from the very beginning. And my experience is that regardless of the software that we are talking about, or the place of the conference, the people that I have come across or that I have met through all this time have a very clear spirit of collaboration and are very generous in terms of giving feedback and in many ways. So suddenly there are many people that are very friendly, and one is not isolated in the journey of learning, or in the journey of actually engaging in challenging projects. So sometimes I think that this is a community that has grown and evolved in a way that goes far beyond what people may think as, well, this is just about technical things of how to use a software or certain digital tools. Or is some people that are talking only about methodologies for certain type of analysis. And I think there is so much that the networking has created So I think in many ways it's one huge resource hub for learning about what is happening, to get updated, and not get lost in what happened when we did our master's or PhD or a particular project. No? So
Yeah.
I think that continuity of what is happening is huge for keeping the better understanding and the dissemination, the further dissemination and engagement with other topics.
Yes.
It's very interesting for me to learn about how people work with the same tools, but in very different topics, and how sometimes there are interconnections about it for work to do together. No?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for those reflections. Definitely a multidisciplinary global community. And so with that, we've run out of time, but I just want to thank you again, Oscar, and everyone who has attended today for being here. An example of the community that you're talking about, Oscar, and hoping to see you all again at our forthcoming webinars. Thank you, Oscar, and have a very good day, everybody. As Christina mentioned in the chat, you will receive the recording of this. And Oscar, thank you also for agreeing to share the slides with participants. That's fantastic. Okay, have a good day, everybody, and see you again soon. Keep well now.
Thank you.